The old prison stood silent against the Philadelphia skyline, its Gothic towers reaching toward the clouded sky like gnarled fingers. Eastern State Penitentiary had been abandoned for decades, or so everyone thought. Deep within its crumbling walls, Dr. Rose Kim worked in secret, converting an entire cell block into what might be humanity's last hope. She wasn't supposed to be there. None of them were. But when the first signals came from deep space 6 months ago, the government needed a secure, off-the-books location. The ancient prison, with its thick walls and underground tunnels, proved perfect for their needs. Rose checked her tablet one more time, reviewing the data streaming in from their detection array. The objects were getting closer, and they were definitely not natural. Their movement patterns showed clear signs of intelligence, but not the kind humanity had hoped to meet. Dr. Kim, Assistant Director Mia Park, burst through the makeshift lab's door, her usual composed demeanor shattered. They've breached the lunar defense line. Every satellite past Mars has gone dark. Rose's fingers tightened around her tablet. How long? 48 hours, maybe less. Mia handed over a classified briefing document. Washington has initiated the Lighthouse Protocol. We're on our own now. The Lighthouse Protocol. Rose had hoped they'd never have to use it. The plan was simple but desperate. Create small pockets of resistance across the globe, hidden facilities that could survive the initial invasion and fight back. Eastern State Penitentiary, with its centuries-old reputation for being haunted, made perfect cover. Who would think to look for advanced technology in a supposedly haunted prison? Rose walked through the converted cell block, past rows of quantum computers and experimental weapons. Their small team had accomplished so much in so little time. The old prison's stone walls now housed some of the most advanced technology ever created, reverse-engineered from fragments of alien tech found on Mars decades ago. Have you told the others? Rose asked, watching as Mia checked the security feeds. Team meeting in 10 minutes. Captain Lee wants everyone in the central hub. Captain Hannah Lee was their military liaison, a decorated Special Forces officer who'd given up her promising career to oversee security at this secret facility. She'd handpicked every member of their security team, turning the prison's old guard towers into state-of-the-art defense positions. As Rose made her way to the central hub, formerly the prison's medical wing, she could feel the weight of history around her. These walls had seen countless stories of human suffering, and now they might witness humanity's last stand. The central hub buzzed with activity. Technicians rushed between workstations, while security personnel checked and double-checked their equipment. Captain Lee stood at the center of it all, her presence commanding attention without effort. Listen up, people, Hannah's voice cut through the chaos. As of 600 this morning, we are at war. Our job is to hold this position and protect Dr. Kim's work at all costs. Everything we've prepared for is about to happen. Rose stepped forward, connecting her tablet to the main display. The technology we've developed here could turn the tide of this invasion. Our quantum interference field might be the only thing capable of disrupting their faster-than-light drives. But we need time to finish it. The room fell silent as images from the lunar observatories filled the screens. The alien ships were visible now, dark shapes moving against the stars, their designs defying human understanding. They looked almost organic, like massive sea creatures swimming through space. 2 days, Rose announced, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Give me 2 days to complete the field generator. If it works, we can create a weapon that could protect not just Philadelphia, but the entire planet. Hannah nodded, her expression grim but determined. You've got your 2 days, Doctor. We'll make sure you get them. As the meeting broke up, Rose caught a glimpse of her reflection in one of the old prison windows. She barely recognized herself anymore. 6 months of secret work had changed her, changed all of them. They weren't just scientists and soldiers now. They were humanity's secret guardians, working in the shadows of a haunted prison to save the world. The irony wasn't lost on her. Eastern State Penitentiary had been built to hold the worst of humanity. Now it might be all that stood between humanity and extinction. Night fell over Eastern State Penitentiary, bringing with it an eerie calm. In Cell Block 7, Dr. Rose Kim's team worked without rest. The old prison's heating system groaned and rattled, mixing with the hum of advanced machinery that filled the converted cells. Power fluctuation in Sector 3 called out Dr. Amy Cho, their lead engineer. Her fingers flew across multiple keyboards as she tried to stabilize the grid. "We're pushing the old electrical system too hard." Rose looked up from her work on the quantum interference field generator. They'd converted the prison's old boiler room into a makeshift reactor, but the power demands were enormous. "Can we reroute through the backup generators?" "Already did." Amy's face was lit by the blue glow of her monitors. "We need more power, or the field tests won't work." Captain Hannah Lee's voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Kim, we've got movement on the outer perimeter. Civilian news crews are getting curious about the lights." This was exactly what they didn't need. The facility's cover story, a historical preservation project, wouldn't hold up under close inspection. Rose grabbed her tablet and headed for the security center, formerly the prison's watch office. The security feeds showed 3 news vans parked along Fairmount Avenue. Their satellite dishes pointed toward the prison's Gothic towers, likely picking up unusual energy readings from the quantum experiments. "Send out the ghost hunters," Rose ordered. Hannah nodded, a slight smile crossing her face. It had been her idea to hire a team of paranormal investigators as part of their cover. Whenever someone got too curious about the strange lights and sounds coming from the prison, the ghost hunters would stage an investigation, keeping the haunted reputation alive. "Team 2, you're up," Hannah spoke into her radio. "Fold spectral sweep of the East Wing. Make it convincing." Minutes later, their decoy team emerged from a side entrance, carrying EMF meters and other ghost hunting equipment. The news crews took the bait immediately, their cameras turning to follow the investigators. Back in the lab, Rose found Mia Park examining new data from their deep space array. The assistant director's expression was troubled. "The invasion fleet has changed course," Maya reported, bringing up a holographic display. "They're not heading for major population centers like we predicted. They're targeting something else." Rose studied the projected flight paths. The alien ships were forming a pattern, creating what looked like a giant net around specific points on Earth. One of those points was directly over Philadelphia. "They know," Rose whispered. "Somehow they know about the quantum technology." A loud bang echoed through the old prison, making everyone jump. Amy's voice came over the intercom, panic evident in her tone. "Power surge in the reactor room. The main transformer is about to blow." Rose and Mia ran through the narrow corridors, their footsteps echoing off stone walls that had witnessed nearly 2 centuries of history. The air grew warmer as they approached the boiler room, now filled with the screech of overtaxed equipment. Inside, Amy and her team fought to contain the overload. Sparks flew from junction boxes as the prison's ancient electrical system struggled to handle the massive energy demands of their experimental technology. "Cut power to all non-essential systems," Rose ordered, rushing to help Amy. "Redirect everything to the containment field." The lights throughout the prison dimmed and flickered. In the darkness, the old building seemed to come alive, shadows dancing across its weathered walls. The ghost hunters above would have plenty to film tonight. Finally, the system stabilized. Amy slumped against a wall, exhausted. "We can't keep doing this. Dr. Kim, the infrastructure can't handle the power we need." Rose knew she was right. They needed a solution, and fast. She pulled up the prison's original blueprints on her tablet, studying them carefully. There had to be something they'd missed. "Look at this," Mia pointed to a section of the blueprints. "There's a whole network of tunnels under the prison that weren't in our original surveys. They lead to..." She was cut off by the sudden wail of alarms. Hannah's voice filled the facility, tight with urgency. "Multiple bogies entering atmosphere. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." Rose looked at her team, seeing her own fear reflected in their eyes. They were out of time. The invasion wasn't coming in 2 days. It was happening now. Chaos erupted throughout Eastern State Penitentiary as the alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the facility's reinforced windows, Rose could see strange lights piercing the clouds above Philadelphia, casting an otherworldly green glow over the city. Status report. Captain Hannah Lee's voice remained steady as she coordinated their defense from the central hub. All sections, check in. Dr. Amy Cho's team scrambled to power up their experimental shields. Quantum field at 40% capacity. We need another 15 minutes. We don't have 15 minutes, Mia Park announced, her eyes fixed on the radar display. First wave of ships will be over the city in 7 minutes. Rose made a quick decision. Amy, forget the safety protocols. Redirect all power to the quantum field. Hannah, get your people into position. If the shields fail, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what was at stake. The old prison's walls trembled as military jets roared overhead, engaging the alien vessels. Explosions lit up the night sky, but their weapons seemed to have little effect on the invaders' advanced technology. In the underground tunnels they'd discovered, a team led by Lieutenant Grace Wu worked to connect additional power supplies. The lieutenant's voice crackled over the radio, distorted by the thick stone walls. Dr. Kim, we found something down here. Some kind of old power station. Looks pre-World War IA. We might be able to use it. Rose grabbed her equipment and headed for the tunnels, with Mia close behind. The narrow passages beneath the prison were cold and damp, their footsteps echoing off walls that hadn't heard human voices in decades. They found Grace's team in a large chamber that didn't appear on any official blueprints. Ancient electrical equipment lined the walls, covered in decades of dust. But behind these outdated machines, they discovered something else, something that didn't belong. That's not from the 1940s, Mia whispered, staring at a metallic sphere embedded in the wall. Its surface was covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Rose's hand shook as she scanned the object with her tablet. These readings, they matched the alien ships above us. This has been here all along, hidden under the prison. Another explosion rocked the facility, closer this time. Hannah's voice came through their earpieces. They're targeting us specifically. Our camouflage is failing. Above ground, the ghost hunting team had transformed into a real defense force, using their fake equipment to hide actual weapons. They engaged with smaller alien craft that had begun circling the prison's towers. In the underground chamber, Rose and her team worked frantically to understand the alien sphere. Look at these markings. She pointed to a series of symbols. They're similar to the quantum equations we've been working on. This isn't just alien technology. It's a quantum power source. Grace stepped forward, her military training evident in her precise movements. Can we use it? We have to try. Rose connected her tablet to the sphere, trying to interface with the alien technology. Amy, are you seeing this data? In the lab above, Amy's voice was filled with excitement despite the chaos. The power readings are off the charts, if we can tap into it. A deafening boom cut through their conversation as something massive struck the prison's outer wall. Dust and debris rained down in the tunnel. Multiple breaches in the outer perimeter. Hannah reported. They're inside the walls. Rose looked at the alien sphere, then at her team. They had no choice now. Amy, prepare for emergency power transfer. Grace, get your people back to defensive positions. Mia, help me with this interface. As they worked, Rose could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. The historic prison had become a war zone, its haunted halls now filled with very real dangers. But they had found something the aliens never expected, their own technology, hidden here for who knew how long. Through her earpiece, Rose heard Hannah organizing the last line of defense. The captain's voice was determined. All units fall back to inner positions. Protect that tunnel at all costs. We hold here, no matter what comes through those walls. They were out of time. Rose entered the final command sequence into her tablet. The alien sphere began to hum, its symbols glowing with increasing intensity. She had no idea what would happen next, but they were about to find out. Eastern State Penitentiary had kept many secrets over its long history. Now it would reveal its biggest one yet. The alien sphere pulsed with bright blue energy, filling the underground chamber with its otherworldly glow. Rose's tablet screen flickered as streams of data poured in faster than she could process them. "Power levels are climbing," Maya reported, her voice tense. "Whatever this thing is, it's waking up." Above them, the sounds of battle echoed through Eastern State Penitentiary's stone corridors. Captain Hannah Lee's voice crackled over their comm system. "We've got hostiles in Cell Block 5. Dr. Kim, whatever you're going to do with that thing, do it fast." Dr. Amy Cho's voice joined the channel from her position in the main lab. "The alien sphere is interfacing with our quantum field generator. It's completing the equations we couldn't solve." Rose watched in amazement as new formulas appeared on her screen. The alien device wasn't just a power source. It was teaching them how to use it. "Amy, start the power transfer. Route everything through the quantum field." Lieutenant Grace Wu positioned her soldiers at the tunnel entrance, their weapons ready. "Movement in the upper tunnels," she reported. "They're trying to find a way down to us." The sphere's humming grew louder, and the symbols on its surface began to rotate and shift. Rose felt a strange sensation, like static electricity running across her skin. The alien technology was changing the very air around them. "Field strength at 200%. Amy's excited voice came through the comm. 300%. "The containment systems are barely holding." In the central hub, Hannah coordinated their defenses. Through the security feeds, Rose could see alien figures moving through the prison's corridors. They were tall, shadow-like beings that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. "They're not just invading," Rose realized, studying the data. "They're trying to phase into our dimension. That's why they needed specific points on Earth. They're creating a gateway." Mia pointed to new readings on her screen. "The sphere is generating some kind of counter-frequency. It's disrupting their phase shift." The entire prison shook as something massive struck the outer walls. Through the ancient stone and earth above them, Rose could hear the sound of alien weapons firing, mixed with the return fire from their defenders. "Cell Block 3 is breached," Hannah reported. "Fall back to secondary positions. Grace, get ready. They're heading your way." In the main lab, Amy worked frantically to control the surging power levels. "Dr. Kim, the quantum field is starting to stabilize. It's creating a bubble around the prison." But her voice cut off as an explosion rocked the facility. "Amy? Amy, report." Rose called into her comm, but there was only static. Lieutenant Wu gripped her weapon tighter. "I'm going up there. My team can hold the tunnel." "No," Rose said firmly. "We need you here. This sphere is the key to everything. If we lose it, we lose the war." The alien device's glow had spread through the chamber, creating patterns of light that danced across the walls. Rose noticed that the shadows cast by these lights weren't moving naturally. They were forming shapes, symbols similar to those on the sphere. "It's not just a weapon," Mia whispered, watching the patterns. "It's trying to communicate." Another explosion echoed through the prison, closer this time. Hannah's voice came through clearly. "They're falling back. Whatever that sphere is doing, it's working. The aliens are retreating from the quantum field." Rose studied the shifting symbols on the walls. With each pattern, more data flooded her tablet. This technology, it wasn't left here by accident. Someone knew we would need it. They left it here for us to find. But who? Maya asked, her eyes wide as she watched the dancing lights. "And why here? Why Eastern State Penitentiary?" Before Rose could answer, a new sound filled the chamber. A deep, resonating tone that seemed to come from the sphere itself. The symbols on its surface stopped shifting and locked into a fixed pattern. "Energy spike." Amy's voice suddenly returned, breathless but alive. Dr. Kim, the sphere is powering up for something big. Whatever it's going to do, it's happening now. Rose looked at her team, then at the ancient alien device that had waited so long to be found. They had started this night trying to save humanity. Now they were about to learn why humanity needed saving in the first place. The alien sphere projected a beam of light into the center of the underground chamber. Within this beam, a holographic image took shape, a figure that looked almost human, but not quite. Its features were slightly different, more angular, its eyes larger than normal. "I am Guardian 7. The figure spoke in perfect English. "If you are seeing this message, then the shadows have returned." Rose, Mia, and Lieutenant Wu stared in amazement at the ancient recording. Above them, the sounds of battle had faded as the alien invaders retreated from the quantum field's effects. 50,000 years ago, my people fought the same enemy you face today, the hologram continued. The shadows exist between dimensions. They seek inhabited worlds to use as gateways, turning entire planets into portals for their invasion fleet. Captain Hannah Lee's voice came through their comms. "Dr. Kim, you need to get up here. The alien ships, they're changing." Through her tablet's connection to the surface cameras, Rose could see the invading vessels transforming. Their organic-looking shapes were becoming transparent, trying to phase between dimensions. The hologram spoke again. "We defeated the shadows by trapping them between phases, but they escaped through time itself. Our calculations showed they would return to this world in your era. We could not remain to fight them again, but we could prepare you. That's why they chose this location." Maya realized, checking historical records on her tablet. Eastern State Penitentiary was built on top of their base. They knew humans would construct something permanent here. Dr. Amy Cho's excited voice joined the conversation. "The quantum field is expanding. It's covering most of Philadelphia now. The alien ships can't maintain their phase shift inside it." The Guardian's hologram gestured, and complex diagrams appeared around it. "Your world has something unique, a natural resistance to dimensional phasing. The mineral content of your planet's core makes it difficult for the shadows to fully enter your reality. This is why they need the gateway points. The prison's iron and steel construction," Rose said, understanding dawning. "It wasn't just built on this spot by chance. The materials used in the prison help amplify the quantum field." Lieutenant Wu's team reported movement in the upper tunnels again, but this time it was their own forces. Hannah had ordered everyone to fall back to the underground chamber. The quantum field was their only protection now. The hologram continued its message. "We left you the tools to fight them, hidden where they could not detect them. The quantum sphere contains all our knowledge of dimensional physics. Use it wisely. You will only have one chance to trap the shadows permanently." Rose looked at the data streaming from the sphere. "These equations, they show how to create a dimensional lock. We can seal the shadows out of our reality forever. But what?" Maya asked, seeing the concern on Rose's face. "The power required would be enormous. It would overload every system we have. The sphere, our generators, even the prison structure itself might not survive." Above ground, Hannah reported that the alien ships were gathering, preparing for something big. "They know what we're planning. They're going to try one final attack." The Guardian's hologram flickered. "Remember, the shadows cannot be destroyed, only contained. The choice of how to use this knowledge is yours. Good luck, people of Earth. May you succeed where we could not." The hologram vanished, leaving them with the humming sphere and its vast database of alien science. Rose looked at her team, seeing the weight of the decision in their eyes. "Dr. Kim," Hannah's voice was calm despite the crisis. "Whatever we're going to do, it needs to be now. Those ships are powering up something massive." Rose took a deep breath. They had found the tools, learned the truth, and now faced the same choice the Guardians had faced 50,000 years ago. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but the fate of all humanity. "Amy," she called through the comm. Begin power-up sequence for the dimensional lock. Mia, help me calculate the energy requirements. Grace, get your people ready for one last fight. Hannah. She paused, looking up at the prison above them. Keep us alive long enough to finish this. The alien sphere pulsed brighter, as if recognizing its moment had finally come. Eastern State Penitentiary had been built to contain the worst of humanity. Now it would contain something far worse, if they could survive long enough to spring the trap. The underground chamber shook as the shadow ships launched their assault. Rose's fingers flew across her tablet, inputting the Guardians' equations into their systems. They had one chance to get this right. Power levels at maximum. Dr. Amy Cho called from the main lab. The quantum field is holding, but the prison's electrical system is failing. Captain Hannah Lee coordinated their remaining forces from the central hub. Shadow forces are trying to breach the field at multiple points. They're looking for weak spots. In the chamber, Lieutenant Grace Wu and her team guarded the alien sphere, which now pulsed with intense blue-white energy. The ancient device was interfacing with their modern technology, creating something entirely new. The dimensional lock needs more power, Mia Park reported, checking the readings. We're still only at 60% of what's required. Rose looked at the prison's blueprint on her screen. The solution hit her suddenly. The cell blocks. The iron bars, the steel doors, they're all connected to the original structure. If we can channel the quantum field through the entire prison, we can use the building itself as an amplifier. Amy finished the thought. But the power surge would destroy the prison completely. Through the security feeds, they could see the shadow beings testing the quantum field. Where their dark forms touched the energy barrier, they flickered and distorted, unable to fully materialize in our dimension. Better to lose the prison than the planet, Hannah said firmly. Do it. Rose nodded to Mia, who began rerouting power through the prison's metal framework. The old building groaned as energy coursed through its very bones. In the main lab, Amy worked frantically to control the power flow. The iron in the walls is conducting the quantum field perfectly, field strength increasing to 80%, 90%. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. We've got a breach, Hannah shouted. Cell block 2. They found a weak point. Lieutenant Wu raised her weapon as shadows began seeping through the tunnel walls. Her team opened fire, their specially modified bullets disrupting the aliens' phase-shifting abilities. Stay focused, Rose called out as she continued working. The dimensional lock is almost ready. Above ground, the prison was coming alive with energy. Blue light shone from every window, every crack in the ancient stones. The shadow ships circled overhead, firing strange weapons that distorted the very air they passed through. Amy, status report, Rose demanded. 95%. Amy's voice was strained. But the power grid is failing. We're losing systems across the facility. In the central hub, Hannah made a decision. All personnel fall back to the underground chamber. We make our stand with the sphere. Rose watched as their defenders retreated down the tunnels, fighting shadow beings every step of the way. The aliens seemed to understand now what the humans were attempting. They were becoming desperate. 98%. Amy called out. Just a few more seconds. A massive explosion rocked the prison. Through the security feeds, Rose saw cell block 1 collapse entirely. The shadow ships were targeting the prison's structure directly now. They're trying to disrupt the power flow. Maya realized, if they destroy enough of the prison's framework, they'll break the circuit. Rose finished grimly. We need that power. In the chamber, Lieutenant Wu and her team had set up a defensive perimeter around the sphere. Shadow beings pressed in from all sides, their otherworldly forms distorting in the quantum field's light. Hannah's voice came through clearly. This is it, people. Hold the line. The alien sphere suddenly pulsed with blinding intensity. New symbols appeared on its surface, spinning rapidly. 100%, Amy shouted triumphantly. Dimensional lock is ready. Rose looked at her team, at the brave defenders fighting impossible enemies, at the ancient technology that had waited so long for this moment. Everything had led to this: the prison's construction, the Guardians' plans, their own desperate work. Success or failure would be decided in the next few moments. She took a deep breath and entered the final command sequence. The quantum field flared brilliantly as Eastern State Penitentiary prepared to fulfill its ultimate purpose, becoming a prison for enemies from beyond reality itself. Energy surged through Eastern State Penitentiary as the dimensional lock activated. Blue lightning crackled along the iron bars and steel doors, turning the entire prison into a giant quantum conductor. The old stones groaned under the strain as reality itself began to bend. Dimensional lock at full power. Amy's voice was barely audible over the rising hum of energy. The field is expanding. In the underground chamber, Rose watched as the alien sphere's symbols spun faster and faster, creating a whirlwind of light. The shadow beings attacking their position began to writhe and distort, caught in the quantum field's growing power. The ships are reacting, Hannah reported from her position. They're trying to escape the field's range. But it was too late for the alien vessels. The quantum field expanded outward from the prison in a dome of pure energy, catching the shadow ships in its web. Their organic-looking forms twisted as they were forced fully into our dimension for the first time. Lieutenant Wu and her team held their position around the sphere, even as reality warped around them. "The tunnels are collapsing," she shouted. "We need to evacuate." "Not yet," Rose called back, her eyes fixed on her tablet's readings. "The lock needs to stabilize first." Mia worked frantically at her station, monitoring the power flow. "The prison's structure is starting to fail. We're losing the connection in cell block 4. Through the security feeds, they could see sections of the historic prison beginning to crack and crumble. The quantum energy was too much for the ancient building to contain. "Amy," Rose called through the comm. "Redirect power from the fallen sections. Use the underground tunnels to maintain the circuit." In the main lab, Amy's fingers flew across her controls. "Rerouting power now. But we're running out of stable pathways." Above them, the shadow ships were being pulled downward, drawn inexorably toward the prison. The dimensional lock was working exactly as the Guardians had planned, turning the site into a trap between realities. "Look," Mia pointed to her screen. "The quantum field is creating a permanent phase barrier. Once it's complete, nothing will be able to cross between dimensions at this point ever again." But the shadow beings weren't giving up. Those still able to move had begun a desperate final attack, throwing themselves at the defender's position with impossible speed. "Behind you." Hannah's warning came just in time. Rose turned to see a shadow being materialized through the chamber wall, its form flickering between solid and transparent. Lieutenant Wu's team opened fire, their modified weapons disrupting the creature's phase-shifting ability. It shrieked, a sound that seemed to come from another universe entirely, before the quantum field pulled it back into the growing dimensional trap. "Field stability at 80%, Amy reported. "But the power drain is critical. The whole grid is about to go." Rose looked around the chamber at her team. They were all exhausted, pushed to their limits by this impossible fight. But they were also humanity's last line of defense. They couldn't fail now. "Hannah," she called through the comm, "get your people out. The prison won't survive much longer." "Already on it," the captain responded. "But we're not leaving without you." The alien sphere suddenly pulsed with blinding intensity. New symbols appeared on its surface, a final message from the Guardians. Mia translated quickly. "It says, 'The lock is closing. What was sundered will be sealed. The circle ends.'" The entire chamber shook violently. Chunks of ceiling began to fall as the underground structure started to collapse. "Field stability at 90%. Amy's voice was triumphant despite the chaos. "Just a few more seconds." Rose looked at the brave people around her. Soldiers, scientists, defenders of humanity. They had discovered an ancient secret, fought an impossible enemy, and were about to save their world. But first, They had to survive. Everyone out. Now, she ordered, grabbing the essential data cores. The sphere will complete the lock on its own. As they ran for the exit, Eastern State Penitentiary trembled on its foundations. The historic prison had been built to contain society's most dangerous inmates. Now, in its final moments, it would contain something far worse, sealing away an ancient enemy in a trap built of quantum energy and human determination. Dawn broke over Philadelphia, casting its first light on the ruins of Eastern State Penitentiary. Where the historic prison had stood for nearly 2 centuries, there was now a crater filled with glowing blue energy. The quantum field shimmered like a dome of northern lights, containing the trapped shadow beings within its barrier. Rose and her team watched from a safe distance as government vehicles surrounded the site. They were all exhausted but alive, having escaped the prison's collapse just in time. Field stability at 100%. Amy reported, checking her tablet. The dimensional lock is permanent. Nothing's getting in or out of that space ever again. Captain Hannah Lee stood with her remaining soldiers, their weapons still ready despite the victory. The other invasion forces across the globe are retreating. Without their gateway points, they can't maintain their presence in our dimension. Mia worked on her laptop, analyzing the final data from the alien sphere. The Guardians knew exactly what they were doing. They turned the prison's unique construction into the perfect trap. Lieutenant Wu approached with a group of officials in dark suits. Dr. Kim, the president, is on the line. They want to know exactly what happened here. Rose looked at the glowing crater that had once been Eastern State Penitentiary. How could she explain that an ancient alien race had used human architecture to create the perfect prison for interdimensional invaders? Tell them the truth, she said finally. Tell them that humanity just won its first interstellar war, using a prison to trap our enemies. The officials nodded and retreated to their vehicles. Already, news helicopters were circling overhead, trying to understand what had happened to one of Philadelphia's most famous landmarks. What about the ghost hunters? Maya asked with a small smile. Their equipment probably recorded everything. Hannah laughed for the first time in days. Let them release the footage. Who's going to believe it's real? Eastern State Penitentiary was always supposed to be haunted. Now it really is, just not by the kind of ghosts anyone expected. Amy joined them, carrying the last of their salvaged equipment. The quantum field is actually feeding itself now. It's using the trapped shadow being's own energy to power the dimensional lock. They'll be powering their own prison forever. Rose watched as the morning sun caught the quantum field's light, creating rainbow patterns in the air. She thought about the Guardians, who had planned this moment 50,000 years ago. They had trusted humanity to find their message, understand their technology, and finish their fight. Look at this, Mia called them over to her laptop. I finally decoded the last message from the sphere. It's not just about the shadows. The Guardians, they're coming back. Everyone gathered around to read the translated text. The message was simple but clear. The trap is set. The enemy is contained. When the lock is complete, we will return. You have proven yourselves worthy allies. Prepare for contact. So this wasn't just about stopping an invasion, Rose realized. It was a test. The Guardians wanted to see if we could handle their technology, if we could be trusted with their knowledge. And we passed, Hannah added, looking proudly at her team. Lieutenant Wu checked her radio. NASA is reporting unusual energy readings from deep space. Something big is heading our way. But it's different from the shadow ships. Rose smiled. The Guardians were keeping their promise. Humanity had faced its first real alien threat and survived, using a combination of ancient wisdom and human ingenuity. The old prison had served its final purpose, becoming a monument to cooperation across time and space. What do we do now? Amy asked, looking at the glowing crater. Now, Rose looked up at the sky, where somewhere their new allies were approaching. Now we get ready to meet our friends, and we remember that sometimes the best prison isn't built with stone and iron, but with courage and determination. The quantum field pulsed softly in the morning light, a reminder that Eastern State Penitentiary's greatest story wasn't about its past, but about humanity's future. The prison that had once held society's darkest elements had become the key to unlocking humanity's brightest tomorrow. The last guard post had fallen, but in its place, a new chapter in human history was about to begin.